Hello.
Hello there.
Long time no see.
Yes. How about an update?
How about an update? That's gonna be a big update. Are you ready?
Yes. I've blocked the next 2 days.
I hope that's enough. No, for the context of to benefit listeners who don't have the context, this is the first time we're doing this podcast in a while, around about 6 months or so, and a lot has happened in the meantime, so there's a lot to cover. Um, so yeah, I have a checklist with 7 items that, off the top of my head, should be mentioned in a list of events in the last 6 months. But as these things go, I only have capacity for 7 items in my head, so maybe I'm missing some. So let's just start and see where we end up.
Yeah.
Um, so first off is the sync loop, which is now it's old because it happens. It was developed almost 6 months ago. It's a software upgrade that dedicates a event loop to the syncing process, where all blocks are downloaded out of order, stored in a temporary directory from all available peers, and then once you have all the blocks, you use them to update your state. And so it's not entirely uncontroversial because it does introduce new attack vectors that weren't attack vectors previously. Like, while you're syncing, what if someone gives you malicious blocks? Well, if that happens, you will store it in the temporary directory, and then you will discover that the block was malicious when you update your state with it, and then you will reject it along with all the blocks that follow. Um, and so if you're a malicious actor, you're going to trick people into deploying their sync loop and then give them bogus blocks so that they cannot complete their sync loop and waste their resources on it. On the other hand, the previous sync mechanism had features left to desire. And so the new one is a little more robust. You can sync from multiple peers. You can sync from peers that are themselves syncing, and you can sync out of order. You can resume a sync across restarts. So there's a lot of features here that benefit user experience.
Okay, that's been shipped.
That's been shipped and deployed, and it's been working for a while. So we're happy with that. Um, a lot has happened in the last 6 months in relation to wallet management, specifically when your wallet is managing many UTXOs. This pertains to um, operators of mining pools, as well as exchanges, and even people who are just mining on their own, because, as you'll recall, half of all mining rewards are time locked. That means that those UTXOs cannot be consolidated, and so your wallet starts accumulating UTXOs every time you successfully mine a block. And so for a bunch of users, the slow update mechanism is a particular problem because they have a lot of UTXOs, right? For most casual users, it was never a problem to begin with, but for power users, it was a problem. And so there are a bunch of things we did to accelerate operations when you're dealing with with a large number of UTXOs. For starters, we assume that you have archival knowledge of the mutator set. So the mutator set, as you'll recall, and if not, as you can do research to remind yourself, it's a cryptographically authenticated database that we use for privacy. And one of the selling points is that you can authenticate updates to this database with a very small amount of state. But the trade-off is that you need to keep it up to date forever. And so the way we had originally designed the wallets is that you keep membership proofs for every UTXO up to date with every block. So if you have 1,000 times as many UTXOs under management, guess what? Your workload just increased by a factor 1,000. Now, for 5 UTXOs of the common casual user, that's no big deal. But if you're an exchange sitting on 10,000 UTXO, it can take a while for that update mechanism to work. And so the way we've addressed this, one of the many ways in which we've addressed this, is by assuming that the node has archival overview of the mutator set, basically meaning that all of history is available in a very well structured layout on disk. And that's one thing. And then another thing is there are a couple of database changes that allow the node to respond quickly to queries relating to UTXOs, where previously you had to dig and compute to find the right answer to a particular query. Now, oftentimes, it's just 1 or 2 table lookups by key, which is a lot faster. All right, so that's wallet management. Then I guess we should also mention, perhaps briefly, something that happened that doesn't necessarily have to do with new features being shipped. It was the spin-off, if that's the right word, or fork, where a bunch of people decided they wanted a different monetary policy and went ahead with that project. Interestingly, a couple of PRs came back from there and were merged into Neptune Core. So to their credit, they certainly have competent developers. All right, number 4 is the libp2p network stack. So previously there was only, support for TCP connections through whatever Rust library offers them natively over one specific port. And libp2p is this library with implementations in Rust, Go, and several other languages that allows peers to connect to each other, peers that speak some kind of peer-to-peer protocol like BitTorrent or like Bitcoin, or in our case, Neptune Core. They connect to each other, discover each other automatically. And one of the nice features is that it works over all possible connections, not just TCP over a given port, but it can work over UDP as well. There's a plugin for Tor. Anything that allows 2 computers to be connected, libp2p can use to establish a connection. So it's much more robust, and it has the benefit of many more eyes. But as before, there are trade-offs to this change. For instance, if there is a vulnerability nested somewhere deep in the libp2p stack, then we are inheriting that. And even if it is just a network vulnerability, we don't want to rely entirely on the libp2p network stack, because someone who exploits that network vulnerability would be able to down the network. And so for that reason, we actually have a dual stack architecture. The old stack lives simultaneously next to the new stack, and both can be active, and both are active, in fact. And so if one goes down, then the other one will still survive. Speaking of vulnerabilities, Yikes. There was a critical vulnerability disclosure that happened in the middle of January, and it was pretty much the worst nightmare. It was a means to produce valid-looking Triton VM proofs without needing to have a true claim. So yeah, it was an attack on the soundness of the proof system, and yeah, consequently, someone who exploits it, or had exploited, if they had exploited it, they would have been able to mint money, and no one would be any wiser. So that's a big problem. And the only good news really is that it was a rather shallow bug and very easily patched. Very easily patched over on in Triton VM, the code. But in order to patch Neptune Core, you need to find a way to answer the question, how do we know what the money supply is? And rather than rebooting, as we did the last time we had a similar vulnerability, we decided instead to roll back a bunch of blocks. So we rolled back to, I think, 23400, which was the timestamp associated to 1 week before the vulnerability was disclosed. So we rolled back till then and continued from that checkpoint onwards. And we plan to introduce through a fork what we call a lustration barrier, but we've since discovered that other people call this a transparency gateway. The idea is that when this fork is deployed, you can only spend your money by announcing how much you own. A one-time event only across this point where you spend UTXOs that are older and generate UTXOs that are newer. In that one transaction, you have to announce the total amount of all the UTXOs that are being spent. And this enables us to track the total money supply. And this enables us to verify that the total money supply is indeed less than 42 million Neptune coins. I guess I should also mention that the very shallow fix to Triton VM was already deployed simultaneously with the rollback. So in the end, we were down for a week or so, but we still have this workload ahead of us where we have to implement this lustration barrier. All right, then next up on the list is...
That's to verify that it's not been exploited.
I guess we would only get a weak indication that it had not been exploited, because supposing it had been exploited, then it's still possible that all the UTXOs that pass through the lustration barrier sum to an amount that's less than 42 million. And in that world, we won't know for sure that it was never exploited. We will know, though, that the total amount is less than 42 million. If it was exploited and more money passes through the lustration barrier than 42 million, then we have a bigger problem. And in this world, rebooting from scratch is not off the table. And of course, if it was never exploited, then it will just be impossible for more than 42 million coins to pass through the lustration barrier. All right. Item number 6 is the exchange integration endpoints, which is task work that we've been doing the last 2 weeks or so, which is where SafeTrade, to their credit, gave us a list of extensions that they had implemented on top of Neptune Core, where it's basically them teaching Neptune Core to speak the language of their exchange, or rather to meet their exchange halfway. It's essentially a bunch of JSON RPC calls that they are using, and they thought, well, maybe other exchanges can benefit from these endpoints as well. So why don't we tell the Neptune Core core developers what we're doing, and then other exchanges can benefit from there as well. We are very grateful, and now we have more insight into how exchanges work, and we went ahead and implemented all of those RPC endpoints.
Cool.
Yes, that was cool. And then the last item on the list is the VXB wallet, which, if you'd asked me last week, I would have said we would have started, but we still haven't started now.
What is VXB?
So VXB is a team. I am not sure what it stands for, or if anything, but they developed a wallet back in the day, and that wallet won the competition. There was a wallet competition, and they won the competition sort of by default because they were the only submission. But to their credit, they were admissible on time and so on. And so probably at the time they submitted their wallet, the quality was already so good that the rest of the potential submitters were demotivated and decided not to make a submission after all. Anyhow, this was one of the there were a couple of wallet options, still are a couple of wallet options, but the other options are the dashboard and Proton. The dashboard comes with Neptune Core. Neptune Core ships with 4 executables, one of which is the dashboard. And it's really a very simple terminal interface into Neptune Core. And since Neptune Core itself comes with a wallet baked in, the dashboard allows you to spend and receive money. But in order to use that, you need to be proficient with the terminal, and you need to know that Neptune Core is actually an application that comes with a wallet baked in. And then there's Proton, which is graphical as opposed to terminal-based, but it has the same drawback. You need to run it simultaneously with an instance of Neptune Core, and you need to know that the wallet is in Neptune Core, and this graphical user interface called Proton is just an interface to Neptune Core, which certainly reduces the barrier to entry, but there's still a barrier to entry because you still have multiple executables to manage and files to manage and so on. Now, the strategy of the VXB wallet is we give you one executable and you are in charge of managing only one secret seed phrase, and all the rest happens as a service by the VXB server, which was also open sourced. But in addition to having the source code for that server open source, they were also running a server at a fee. They were taking a fee to upgrade your transactions, include those transactions into blocks, and so on. Answer queries about your transactions. It was a very usable wallet. Unfortunately, the VXB team decided to discontinue those services, probably for lack of revenue. Too bad. but it's still a fantastic piece of software. And we decided that we want this to continue to exist. And so in the next few weeks, we'll be looking at the VXB wallet and making sure it speaks the most recent version, which is probably going to be 6.2 in the very near future because of the exchange integration endpoints. And then we'll probably be running a server as well. Probably also taking a fee, because if you want the internet to do something for you, you should be prepared to pay something.
Just from my understanding, what's the service that they were providing again? Why was it a fee necessary?
The main thing is upgrading transactions. So there are two things that you can broadcast if you want to issue a transaction. One thing is a proof collection, and that's a collection of very easy to create proofs, but that's not the thing that the blockchain integrates into blocks. The thing that the blockchain integrates into blocks is a single proof, which is a recursive proof of verification of all the elements of the proof collection. It's much smaller, and it allows transactions to be merged and updated, and the starting point for a block is also a single proof transaction. And so if you broadcast the proof collection and nobody on the network wants to upgrade it, then it's not going to be confirmed. But if you broadcast a proof collection with a little fee, then you're actually incentivizing the rest of the network to upgrade your transaction. And from that point onwards, it's actually likely to be included in a block. And so that was their business model. Your computer running our software, that speaking in the name of the VXB team now, is charged with a very simple task of producing these proof collection. And the proof collection does not leak any information about the secret key, does not leak any information exposing your privacy. And so you totally can broadcast this proof collection, but you still need someone to upgrade it into a single proof, and that's where their service came into play. You actually pay a fee to unlock that service. And yeah, we think this service should continue. So we're going to take up that mantle.
Okay.
That's it. That was 7 points.
Wow. Okay, and so people coming in like me, not really up to date on the updates from in the trenches, and they suddenly see, for instance, there's 2 Neptunes now. What's what? Well, I know you mentioned it briefly, but I think that might be a point of could still cause some confusion. So maybe you want to add some color to that.
Well, to be fair, when we started, we were aware that Neptune was already a term used by other blockchain projects that went nowhere, fortunately for us. The point being that the term Neptune was already widespread, and now it's in the same situation. But yeah, if you're going to look for Neptune, the super cool cryptocurrency with post-quantum security and recursive ZK Starks and so on, you'll actually find 2 matches. One is Neptune Core, one is Neptune Cash, and one is Neptune Privacy. Neptune Cash has the ticker NPT, and Neptune Privacy has the ticker XNT. And what you should know is that the original founders are on board with Neptune Cash, the original coin, if you will. Neptune Privacy started with a fresh slate, but in order to get coins in the Genesis block on Neptune Privacy, you had to burn coins on Neptune Cash. So it's fair to say that a bunch of people migrated to Neptune Privacy. And the selling point there is a different monetary policy.
So just for clarity, you guys, you and Torquil are Neptune Cash, continuing the original project, and this is something that's split off and went their own way.
Exactly.
Okay. Unaffiliated.
Unaffiliated. But like I mentioned earlier, there have been a couple of PRs from that team that were merged into Neptune Core, and we maintain professional relations with them.
Mm-hmm. But it's not more private or anything.
It's not more private. Feature-wise, it's almost the same, except they have new blocks every 5 minutes instead of every 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And well, there is a security trade-off there. What is security usability trade-off there, and they occupy a different point on that spectrum.
Books will be written about the Neptune block wars.
Yeah, not by us. We're too busy coding.
All right, cool. I think that might be a wrap.
Sounds good. All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.